Welcome to another episode of PLP, where we have Monica here, Stephanie, and Eric. We are asking the question, how do you prepare for summer? Do you schedule? Do you not schedule? What are some tips and tricks as you get ready for the fun summer? So Monica, what are you doing for your kids this summer?
Well, just got out on Monday, so a couple of days ago, and just taking a couple of days to just relax and let us recoup from the end of the school year festivities. But this year, I actually wanted to try something that we haven't done before, which is to come up with a bucket list for summer. My kids have some different activities that they participate in with gymnastics and soccer and things like that, but we do have a lot more free time than we do in summer. So I really wanted to try to, for all three of them, get an idea of what they really would like to do for summer. And some things we'll have to schedule, and some things might be more on the fly. But I thought that was a really fun way of trying to give us some sense of scheduling and making sure we hit some really fun activities with them.
Remind us of how old your three children are, Monica.
So I have a 9-year-old going into fourth. I have an 8-year-old going into second, and then I have a 6-year-old going into first grade.
Got it.
So
Very
they are,
cool.
they definitely have their likes and their interests, and trying to keep them off TV and screens, so that's not just the go-to when they wake up, and try to have a little bit of a plan for the day. Because I've done summers, like obviously during the pandemic and everything, where it was just wake up and let's see what we feel like doing today. But I
Mhm.
think we need to kind of evolve a little bit into something else.
A little more structured, yeah. So, I have a 16-year-old going on 17, a 14-year-old who's going to be 15 very soon, and then also a 12-year-old who's going to be a 13-year-old. So, it's a little different for us because we're not signing them up for summer camps anymore. My 16-year-old just he told me a couple days ago, Dad, I have 2 summers left before I go off to college. I want to have a little more freedom. And I'm like, oh, good argument. So we were kind of debating on, what it is and what time he needs to be home by on the weekends. And so that's still in negotiations. But he seems to be at that age with a driver's license. He's able to structure his time. He plays sports. He's going to his baseball camps this summer, but he's also, practicing with his friends, and he's going to, the gym, a specific gym that works with baseball players. So that's nice. So I don't really have to plan anything out for him, which it's pretty structured. And then, my 14-year-old, he's out with his friends. He's enjoying his summer, but he's also pretty active, and I feel comfortable with what he's doing. He's skateboarding. He's hanging out with his buddies. They're going to the beach. They're doing everything you would want to do as a 14-year-old in the summer. And then I think with our 12-year-old, it's a little more structured still. We're scheduling times where she can go surfing with her friends, so she's not really allowed to just go out on her own. We're still having to supervise, some of the things that she's doing. It's scheduling friends to come over and what they're going to do when they come over. And, they like to cook and bake, which is nice. She's also surfing, like I said. So, scheduling time where we can go out with her in the water and going out with her friends in the water, so that she enjoys her time doing that. But yeah, I think it's more as, they get older, from our experience, as long as they're doing the healthy things and things that we're comfortable with, there's not as much structure. But with the 12-year-old, we're still stuck structuring her schedule day to day. And then there's a balance, like when do we give them a free day where they can just do what they want to do,
Yeah.
and we're not having to tell them that it's time to go surfing or volleyball or whatever it is, gymnastics. So that's always the challenge, is trying to give them that free day without feeling guilty if they're on screen for a couple of hours.
I was just going to ask, do you feel like you and Arwen get more relaxed as this for the summer? I mean, is it just not so structured, or in terms of like they're holding them accountable for their different things? I mean, I'm sure there's some things that still have to continue, but do you feel that everything just kind of relaxes a little bit for the summer, or is it still?
Uh, I would love to say yes. It's so relaxing, and we have our freedom. And the kids like, no, it's just different. I mean, we're not waking up in the morning, getting everybody ready for school and making sure that the older one is getting out on time and driving the other two to school or whatnot. But um, maybe a little easier just because we don't have to worry so much about getting them ready in the morning, so
Yeah.
we can do our morning routines. But there's still things that are scheduled, they're just later in the day.
Yeah. I think I get really relaxed on bedtime. I think that's one thing I'm not so got to get to bed because we have to wake up so early. But
Sure,
yeah.
we are too. I mean, we have, and it's different for all three of our kids. Our daughter, she's like very good about, she wants to be in bed by 9:30, and even if we're in the middle of watching a movie, she'll tell us like, I need to, I'm tired, I need to go to sleep. Whereas my two boys, like if we don't tell them to go to sleep, they'll stay up until like 2 a.m. So, but the best way to get them to go to sleep earlier is wake them up earlier. So that's what we do as well, Yeah.
I was gonna ask, because Eric, like your kids are like such different ages, right? So the oldest one, a little bit more freedom. At what age, like your youngest is almost 13, and then the middle one is like, at what age are you comfortable with letting them kind of be a little bit more free and independent, like your middle child? And
Sure. So, it's interesting. I maybe a couple of years ago, I would have told you, hey, with the boys, I would do this, but with my daughter, this is what I'm going to do. But it's actually it's all happened very similar in terms of the freedoms we've given, all three children. So, it really started when each one of them, at least with the two older boys, my middle son just graduated from 8th grade. And so this summer we've been allowing him, I mean, that's not true. It's around 7th grade that we've allowed him to go out and about. But we still kept a close eye on where he was going and who he was hanging out with. And not that we're not keeping a close eye on him, but it's a little easier to say, like, if he wants to go down and hang out with his friends down at the beach, we're, not so worried that he's going to the beach alone. And that happened around 7th and 8th grade for both of my boys. And so with my daughter, that's happening now because she's going into 7th grade. So we're allowing her to go with her friends down, and it's still within a close proximity to home, but she's able to venture out more and more. And, with technology today, we can track our kids and where they're going. So that makes me feel a little more secure in terms of their safety. And like, again, it's not too far from the home, but I think it's around 7th grade. I've allowed the kids to kind of venture out more and more and, to meet up with their friends and to go to places and, to check in with us or we check in with them. But like I said, like with technology today, we're able to track where they're at. And I highly recommend that parents do that. And they know that they're being tracked. It's not like it's a secret. So,
yeah. For Harrison's still at the age where, he's not quite old enough to be doing those things on his own. He likes to think he is.
what
but
grade
it's
is
still
he
like
going into, Stephanie? Sorry.
he
Oh.
is going into 6th grade, so he's
Okay.
almost 12. So he's
Okay.
at that like somewhat, so like, over this, obviously it's longer days over the summer. So, he goes, I sign him up for camps and do those things. And, outside of those, then it's like a little bit of freedom of running around the neighborhood with his friends. He's also tracked on his phone. He does check in. But over the summer, it is like, he's probably not going to like it too much that he is going to be away at a camp, not, like all day from working hours. I drop him off, I pick him up. He's not gonna have time to like spend with his friends because then he has jujitsu and he comes
What kind of
home
camp
and
is
it's the end of
it?
the day.
What kind of
Just a
camp is it?
regular, just a camp, like not a special, it's like an all day, just, hey, you're working and your kids need to go spend time with responsible adults because they can't be
Yeah.
home by themselves.
Yeah.
And he has friends there, so it's not like he's by himself, but it's every day. And I have a feeling that there's going to be some complaining just because it's all day long.
I was going to ask how many of his friends were there at the camp, because he's kind of at the age where this might be the last year that you can really convince him to go, because he is going to be at that age where, because I think is it 12 years old or something, they can start being home by themselves, really. So I was just wondering if he did have some friends or if he was already putting up some fights. Because if you look at camps, you see all the little kids and then it starts dwindling as they go up.
Yeah. So he went to the camp last summer. He was fine. But also he's, grown up a lot in the past year. So I think He's got a few friends there. I think the complaint is going to happen when the kids in the neighborhood aren't all going to that camp and he wants to hang out with those kids. And then it's, well, I'm home, I have jujitsu, and then it's dinner time, and then it's dark out, and you're not going to let me hang out with my friends. And it's like, sorry, buddy, like I already know it's happening. Like I almost want to tell him, like, I don't want to hear you complain about it, because I give it a week and he's going to complain that he can't hang out with his neighborhood friends, because I've given him freedom to like ride his bike in the neighborhood. He'll go to the park with like a group of friends. He's picking up all of his friends in the house, you know, like if they're going to their houses, and it's into the school year. So they're minimum days, you know.
They have the weekends for that too. Like I tell our kids, I used to tell our kids, like, oh, you have the weekends for that. You know, in previous summers, like we would try to pack their schedule so that they weren't just sitting at home. But you know, you have the weekends for that. You can do what you want on the weekends, even though we would still pull them and make them go to the beach with us or whatever it might be. But
yeah, our weekends are pretty relaxed.
Yeah, and like now that you know, Stephanie, it's like you're like 2 or 3 steps ahead of what's going to happen. It's like you can mentally prepare for that. But you know, the idea is it's true. I mean, like I said earlier, my son said, I have 2 summers left. I want to enjoy it. I'm going to go off to college. And I'm thinking, wow, that is crazy. You know, that is crazy. I can't believe it. Which will be interesting, because then 2 years after that, the next one leaves, and 2 years after that, the next one leaves, and then we're empty nesters with the hopes that the first one doesn't move back in, right?
Yeah.
I read somewhere that it was something like you only have 18 summers with your kids. And I was like, wow, you don't think about it because you think it's such a long time, but 18 isn't like what you're saying. It's not that long of a time.
Well, we're at Lucy's 9th. So we're like right here. This is our 10th summer with her. And I told Cameron, it was like over this year. I said, we've already hit halfway through with Lucy, and that's it. Like I'm like, did we do enough in the half? Like that wasn't enough. Like, you know, and I'm like, we only have half left to go with her. And so we did start kind of like being like, oh my gosh, 9 left and you only have 2. But I was like, we were already freaking out about the 9.
Oh,
so. I got a question for you guys. So for when you're not scheduling everything out, what do you do with the dreaded question, I'm bored? Because it is secretly a question.
Yes. My little one just actually said that we've been 1 day off of school. So it was their first day of summer and she already came saying, I'm bored. And I was like, all right. I mean, and they're pretty good at finding something that's usually her cue, because she's the one that asks most for TV or asks most for iPad time. So I think that's kind of her also cue to say that she wants to watch, you know, but I'll just tell her, I'm like, all right, well, you can find something to do, or you can just hang out, or you can go read in your bed. Those are your options. And so she does. And I'll be doing something. I'll keep myself busy. And then, you know, and I do try to like schedule time. Like I will try to schedule time, like having some time with each of them, because their interests are so different. And she is the youngest, she's 6. And so sometimes I forget my expectations of my older 2. She is a lot younger, then it's like she can't necessarily do the same things, but I expect that. So I try to be a little bit more mindful of that and giving her things to do, or scheduling more time to do things with her specifically, because the other 2 make more plans or come up with the idea to have play dates more than she does too, or interact with their friends or go out and play. So, you know, I think that's a little bit of a struggle, but yeah, I mean, I think it's great for kids to be bored. I think that it's necessary for their creativity and for their growth. I think that if we try to figure out and solve all of that for them, I think we take away such a huge thing for them to be creative and figure out things to do on their own. And I know that there's been research about that too. I don't know specifically, but yeah. What about you, Stephanie, with Harrison?
I like that response. I would say that I'm not quite as nice with my responses to Harrison, because he has a million things to do. But that kind of what I do fall back on is, well, you have these things that you can do, so you can choose one, or like he won't like my choice of things that he will have to do. So I'm like, you just have to choose, you know. But you're right. I think like them finding their own ways to do things is probably better than us just telling them to, because then they're not making a choice either. Like we're making them, or making the choice for them.
I don't have a problem with my kids being bored. Like I know some people like, oh, I don't want my kid to be bored. I want to make sure they're always doing something or give them something to do. Like it doesn't like bother me. Which I think it shouldn't bother anybody, but like it doesn't bother me when they say they're bored. Like I don't feel like I have to jump or to have to do something. It's like, when your kid says they're hungry, like you want to provide for them, right? But for the boredom part, it's like for me, I'm just like, all right, cool. Like enjoy
Yeah,
being
right.
bored.
Right?
Like,
Thanks for letting me know.
and
When you get
honestly,
older, that's not going to happen so much.
yeah, and honestly, like for the most of the time when they say that, and they kind of wallow around for a little bit, and eventually they always find something like fun and unique to do. It's not usually one of the things they normally would do too. So I always find that like fun to see like what are they gonna find, But anyway.
I love it. So the takeaway, parents listening, is it's okay for your kids to be bored. You don't have to rescue them. I
Yeah.
love that.
No, yeah, you definitely don't need to rescue them. I think it's funny that, Monica, you were saying, go read a book. My mom used to say that to me. So I'd say, Mom, I'm bored. She's like, go read a book. I'm like, I don't want to read a book, but
Yeah.
I would find something to do, rather than as a parent, like, constantly trying to find things for your kids to do is not healthy for them. They need to be able to do that on their own. They need to be able to figure out, what can I do, during these times when I'm alone or I don't have any friends around. So I think we're taking away something, valuable skills and lessons from children when we're doing that. We also have to be very careful with the kids, by allowing them complete access to iPhones, iPads, and any of the screen time stuff, so that when they're bored, they're not just going to that stuff and spending 6, 7, 8 hours in their bedroom, on the screen. So, but yeah, I think it's important that our kids learn how to, manage their time and, find things to do. And whether it's reading a book or doing a puzzle or, going outside and, getting some sun and exercise, I think, they need to learn how to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to like for the screen time. Like I think the summertime is just an easier way, like for just to give them more screen time, but then just keeping the limits to be the same as it is normally, right? So like we're a little lax in the summer, like bedtime, Monica, you mentioned like, they can go to bed a little bit later, we're waking up a little bit later. And I think that those things are okay. But when it comes to like those types of activity, it's like trying to keep it the same or similar to like what has happened before, like during the regular school year, because it is so hard to then reduce it, or they don't really understand, like, we let me have it longer on this day, why can't I do it longer on this day? And then trying to pedal backwards. I struggle with that in the summer because I am a little bit more lax, and but I always have to remind myself like it's going to be a struggle when you have to go back. And so I try to create more of like a like when he's not in camp, like creating more of a structure of other activities where that can happen, but not more than necessary or more than what's happened before, because it does create such an issue.
Yeah. And I was like, I've been toying with the idea with the screen time. I mean, there's a lot of days that we go through during the school year where we aren't using screens, unless it's for like specific for homework or something like that. But just because the days are so filled and they go by so quickly. And my kids do relatively go to bed early. So like 7:30, 8, it's not like, it's a very quick day once school ends. But in the summer, I've been trying to figure out and talking to Cameron, my husband, about like, how do I figure out with the screens? Because we just do have a lot more time. And so it's like, do I give them a certain amount of day? And they can use it whenever they want, but this is the allotment of time. And then maybe there might be other times, like we watch a movie together or do something else together, that might be different. Or if they're doing like their math things, like a math game, I might allow more time, but just giving them a chunk of time and allowing them to place it where they want to. The 2 older ones are very good about when I give them a time, they set it on their iPad, the alarm goes off and they shut it off. My third one, she will literally, she knows I'm busy doing things and she will just try to see how long can I go. So working on that, but I don't know, that's something I've been trying to like figure out for the summer, like what we're going to do, and just trying to figure out how to place that for them. Because I want to allow them access to things. Like I think there's a lot of great things that are on, screens and stuff too, but trying to figure that part out still.
I was also
Yeah.
going to ask for you guys that have kids of different ages, do you like keep the amount of screen time even for all kids, or as they get more responsibility, are they also getting more screen time?
That's a good question. I have been really, I do a lot of things where everything is together with them, but I mean, I had 3 kids in 3.5 years, so they are relatively very close in age. But my oldest one, especially like now that she's going into 4th grade, her maturity and also the things that she's need, like I have been letting her stay up later because she gets home at 7 from gym. So it's like she needs time to stay up and do work and sometimes to decompress. Whereas the other ones, I'm still trying to stick to that 7:30, 8 bedtime. It's not that she doesn't need the bed, but it's like our schedule is making. So I have been starting to kind of pull her away a little bit because she has more responsibilities, but I haven't, quite figured that out. I wonder, Eric, how about you with the kids in terms of their responsibilities or their allowance of different, things like screens and stuff?
Yeah, so it varies. I mean, it depends on what we're doing for the day and how much, time they've had. We had it a little more structured when they're younger,
Yeah.
in terms of, they can have an hour a day or 30 minutes a day or whatnot, or, if they've completed certain chores. I mean, now, at this age, there's not one, I mean, with the boys, like the boys are doing the trash and my daughter also helps out with some of those things, but like to take out the trash, in the kitchen and to collect them throughout all the bathrooms, like I'm just asking them when it needs to be done. So and they're not resistant to it, so it's really nice, they'll do it. I mean, sometimes I'll get like, oh, can I do it later, and I'm like, no, it needs to be taken out now. So but in terms of chores, it's more of like just like the group mentality of helping everyone, so that we can get what needs to be done. I think in terms of the big thing with my 2 boys is having money. And so the oldest one has a job, but he still owes me money for a purchase that he made, when he bought his car. So, he's getting half his paycheck for himself, and then half goes to me to pay off his debt, which he's almost already done. But we give them options of making money, to wash our cars. And so they can wash the cars and make money doing that. So that's a big thing because they need money, to hang out with their friends. And gas is so expensive now. It's like I've noticed with my older one, he's very careful with now where he goes, who he drives, because gas is so expensive.
Yeah.
I had this kind of like back and forth with like, hey, if you need money, wash my car. And how's it going? You want to come onto the podcast? What's that? Okay, have fun. Sorry for the interruption. Summer.
Speaking
So my son telling me what he's going to do right now, which is nice. He's checking in, but he was like, I don't like washing cars. Is there something else I can do? And I'm like, well, you can't just pick and choose what you want to do. I need my car washed and you need money. And so he was kind of digging his heels. And the funny thing was he wanted to go out on a Friday night, but he had no gas. And so he hung out with us and I'm like, God, that's so weird. It's a Friday night. And he's like, well, I have no money for gas. I'm like, wash my car tomorrow. And, it's like, who's going to stick to their guns? And it's like, well, of course, he lost that one and washed my car. So, it's like, it's just interesting as they get older, money becomes a big play because we're not just giving them, the money, like when it was earlier, if they needed something to go out with their friends and they're with other families, you want them to pay for their own way, you give them money. But now it's more about understanding the value of money, working for money, and understanding that all these fun things are not for free. So
when did you when or how do you switch that over, like from giving to them really understanding a little bit more?
When you start going to the ATM way too much,
Yeah,
then you realize, this is not working for me anymore. It's like when you want to pull out cash to buy something and your cash is gone.
when
So,
things start to get more expensive
yeah,
for them,
I mean,
like their likes.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like I said, like to fill up a truck or an SUV, it's like you're spending more than $100 to fill it up. And then, like if they're traveling, to the beach and going here and there, they're trying to fill up their tanks every 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, this This is
Oh
not
my
working for me.
Wow.
So, so now he's like picking, like, when you first get your driver's license and you have your, you save your money for your car, which he did a great job doing. Now it's like, you want to drive all the time, but you realize gas is expensive. So now, like he just told me, I'm going out with some friends. They're picking me up. It's like, oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. It
I
happens.
remember that as a teenager too. Like your parents at like when you get a cars when they're like, you got to earn it now because we're not going to fill your tank up with gas.
When you do start going out so much more when you have a car, obviously, your whole world opens up a little bit more.
Sure. But yeah, so I mean, that's where, in terms of the older boys, they're interested in now doing things to make money and, so that they can fund their expeditions, if you want to say.
Do any of you guys have like summer like rituals or traditions, I guess, that you guys do either with your families or that you've done like with when you were a kid with your families that you kind of keep
Yeah,
at all?
that's a great question. I think with our family, for the most part, we try to take a week off where it's just the family and we do something where we spend a lot of time together. I've been putting, which I think this would be, great for you, Monica, with the girls. I have 2 boys and a daughter, and you have 2 daughters and a son. When we go on a trip or vacation, we try to give them their own separate room and they share a room. And it's like a great bonding experience to see how they interact with each other. They spend a lot of time together during that 1 week that we take off when we take our summer vacation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. What about you, Steph?
Yeah,
Anything?
we grew up the same, Steph.
Marky.
Summers were precious because it was snowing all year long.
Yeah.
And finally the summer hits and you can actually go outside.
And that's what it was in the summertime. Like I'm trying to think as I got older, I don't think that we did summer vacations as a kid. I think it was just spending time outside and being outside all day long. Like, so we're from Michigan. And so the sun doesn't really go down until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the summertime. And so you're out until that time because it's daylight so many more hours. But yeah, you're right. Like it was a little bit different growing up. Like I just felt like you grew up in a rural area. I grew up in a rural area. And so you just end up spending time outside. With Harrison, I mean, we try to do like a week of vacation in the summer. Like that's kind of been since he started school, like just doing whether the vacation's the same, but just trying to take a week off and just spending time together as a family and not having responsibilities and doing those things. I never had it as a kid, so I wanted to make sure that I instilled that in him because I think it gives a break from everyday life and doing the same thing every day. It breaks it up, gives you something to look forward to. It's a break in like the routine. So I never had that as a kid. My parents worked, like they took turns working day and night, and we stayed home all the time. So
yeah, I feel you guys now living up here in Oregon. We actually plan 0 vacations in the summer because it is so beautiful up here. And it's not like this all year round. So we've actually been trying to shift our vacations to the spring, which is the winter spring, which is the hardest time here. Not as hard as Michigan, but in terms of the cloudiness and the rain is a lot. So we've been trying to shift it more towards that time. But the summers here, it's like the sun doesn't set sometimes till 10 o'clock, in the height of the summer. And
Wow.
So nice.
The bed obviously is crazy hard when it's 7:30 and it feels like it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But that's been kind of fun for us, like living up here. They're like a lot of our neighbors have front yard barbecue pits and stuff, and so we end up having like dinners always outside in the front with our neighbors and stuff almost nightly in the summer, which is kind of a fun thing that we do. And then we have a lake near us, so we do get to go out and enjoy that for the 3 months.
What kind of things, like, so with the kids, like when you're saying like you have an amazing place to spend your whole summer vacation, you're taking advantage of your local area, which I think is great. What are you doing? Like all 3 kids can swim now?
all 3 kids are swimmers. So we do go to the lake. We have a couple paddle boards. We have a handful of friends with boats. Our lake is pretty small, but we do on the boats and things like that. There's just so many like hikes and rivers, and a lot of people go rafting. A lot of our friends are big rafters and taking the paddle boards down different places. There's Oregon actually is the has the most waterfalls in the whole United States, or even more than Hawaii.
Oh,
so
wow.
so it's kind of like finding all the cool waterfalls and going to that. That's always really fun. We call it the coast. We don't call it the beach here because it is not the beach, but we do go to the coast. But it's still not hot. It's colder at the coast than it is where we live inland a bit. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much to do outdoors, and because the day is so long, it's like endless. It feels like the endless summer kind of thing, where it's just
That's
like
cool.
the days are endless, not like it's California endless summer.
10 o'clock at night. I can't believe the sun sets at 10 o'clock at night. There's so much to do. And what time does the sun rise in the morning?
Oh, I mean, I get up and usually walk about 5 o'clock and it's already up. So it's a
Wow,
long day.
I love it.
But then, in the winter, it's you get up, you're going to school at 8 and it's dark, and you're getting out of school at 4 and it's dark.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
very
anyway.
good. All right. So, I think this is a lot of hopefully helpful information for all our families out there. And if you guys have suggestions, please, shoot us an email or let us know. But we'd love to hear what you guys are doing as well. Thank you, Monica, Stephanie, and Marquis for joining us in this episode of Parent Like a Professional and trying to structure your summer activities. So hope to see all of you soon. Take care.